first and spelling, please.
Joshua Blakeney, Joshua-Blakeney.
And where are you from?
University of Lethbridge. I'm a graduate student at the University of Lethbridge. I'm doing my MA thesis on the origins of the global war on terror. So that's in Alberta, my university, and I'm studying the events of 9/11. And so I'm particularly motivated to see George Bush be put in a court of law, because I'm aware that he seems to have been in some way involved in the events of 9/11. That many people now, 89% of Germans, a third of Canadians, realize that 9/11 was a false flag terrorist attack. What we were told, the tale we were told within hours of 9/11, is actually scientifically impossible. It violates laws of aerodynamics and laws of physics, and as a result, knowing what I know about 9/11, knowing that the official story of 9/11 is false, I'm particularly incensed and motivated to see Bush be put in the stand. At a more circumscribed level, evidently George Bush's confession to torture, he idiotically confessed in his memoir, Decision Points to Torture, gives the Canadian government no choice but to apprehend him when he sets foot on Canadian soil. Don't believe me, just listen to Amnesty International, a much more reputed institution than myself. And Amnesty International just last week told the Canadian government that they have no choice but to apprehend George W. Bush when he comes into Canada. And so as a result, the Canadian government seems to be disobeying everybody. The Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act in Canada is unambiguous. Those who've committed torture and those who've violated international law have no choice but to be arrested. I don't want George Bush tortured or have anything done to him physically harmful, but I think he should be cross-examined. In fact, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act likewise stipulated that George Bush shouldn't have even been allowed into Canada. Jason Kenney, the Minister of Immigration, was happy to use the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act to bar a peace activist, George Galloway, but yet when it comes to people like George Bush, they can come and go with impunity. He seems to be the Minister of Impunity rather than the Minister of Immigration, and I think that's particularly unjust.
But Bush hasn't been charged with anything. How can he possibly be arrested?
Well, exactly, that's the point. We want him to be charged. It's the fact that he either cancels trips, like in the case of Switzerland, when it looked like he was going to be prosecuted, he cancelled his trip. At least if Canada could have motivated George W. Bush to cancel his trip, that would have been a good expression of Canadian sovereignty, saying that we're an autonomous country, we're not the same thing as the United States. But yeah, it seems that either he goes to countries where he's friendly with, where we don't have a rule of law. In a country that has the rule of law, it should be that the law enforcement system and the political system are separate from one another, that the judiciary is autonomous and depoliticized. But it seems in Canada, when people like Gail Davidson of Lawyers Against the War pressure the government and give them all the information they need to figure out why George Bush should be charged, they still don't enforce the law. And so that begs the question why. And it seems that if you're from Rwanda and you're kind of a middle manager in the empire and you've been involved in heinous crimes, you will be arrested. In 2009, they used the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes legislation to prosecute Desire Munyaneza, a Rwandan genocidaire. So if you're from Africa, or recently in Lethbridge where my university is, they rounded up a guy from Guatemala. So if you're from a third world country, they'll use the war crimes legislation to prosecute you. But if you're from Texas or Tel Aviv or Washington or New York or London, then it's a different matter. The law is applied inconsistently, which implies that we don't have a rule of law in Canada. We have a political enforcement system. These are political enforcers, not law enforcers.
What words do you have Mayor Watts, who's hosting Bush here today?
Well, Mayor Diane Watts, I mean, I must say, living in Alberta, we perceive the West Coast as a liberal place, a kind of avant-garde place, comparatively. And she's, sullying the name of Surrey. The good people of Surrey, I think, overwhelmingly would agree that George W. Bush is one of the most reviled individuals on the planet. That if anyone should be apprehended and charged with the crimes of the global war on terrorism that was initiated with 9/11, that he should be. And the fact that she went so far as to extend an invitation to him does, bring into question whether she's the correct representative for the people of Surrey. I certainly, if I had been someone who voted for her, I would regret having voted for her. And I think she'll probably lose a number of votes for this. And so, while it might be good, I don't know, for campaign donations or for some reason that she went along with this hosting of a self-confessed torturer, I think, in terms of votes, which in a democracy is the ultimate job. I mean, a politician's one of the few jobs where you have one employee and say 10,000 bosses. It's the other way around. I mean, all the people of Surrey are her bosses in a way. And I think she's going to lose some political capital as a result of her hosting of a war war criminal.
I know you're involved with
Joshua Blakeney, Joshuablakeney.
Which organization?
I'm just a graduate student at the University of Lethbridge, but my friend Splitting the Sky attempted a citizen's arrest on Bush in 2009. Bush's first visit to a foreign country without diplomatic immunity was to Calgary on March 17, 2009, and so Canada seems to have been a test case, and it seemed that these self-confessed torturers and credibly accused war criminals feel comfortable, coming and going from Canada and collecting lucrative paychecks as a result. And so my friend attempted a citizen's arrest on Bush at that time, and we had a court case. The former Attorney General of the United States, Ramsey Clark, came into Calgary. The mainstream media ignored it.
Just got one more question for you. I know you're in the Occupy Vancouver movement.
Yeah.
How's this linked to this group?
Well, I went to the Occupy Vancouver movement to nominate this as a cause. I think that, we're attempting to build consensus, and I'd be surprised if there was one person at Occupy Vancouver who would disagree with the proposition that George W. Bush should be apprehended in Canada. And so I tried to nominate that in my speech, which can be found on YouTube at Joshua Blakeney Speaks at Occupy Vancouver. So,
thank you.
Okay. Blakeney.
What are you doing in
I came to Vancouver in order to continue the process that we initiated in 2009 when George Bush came to Calgary in his first visit to a foreign country without diplomatic immunity. I followed Bush to Saskatoon now, he's come to Calgary, and now I'm in Vancouver, and I'm here to let the police know that they claim they're keeping the peace, but in court they said they arrested my friend who attempted a citizen's arrest on Bush in order to keep the peace. Surely the best way to keep the peace would to not put us in this quagmire where those of us are wondering, should we be doing citizen's arrest now? They're the ones who should be enforcing the law. When the law enforcement system becomes politicized and is influenced by the whims of here today, gone tomorrow politicians, by the ideologues who are here for a few years in our parliament and then off sitting on the board of directors of big corporations, I can't help wondering whether it might be worth their while in the long run to arrest Bush. I mean, no worries. Okay, no worries.
That was a great speech.